Hi, welcome to another very low effort, took only a few minutes to make video. Let's talk about Fear Street Prom Queen and why it didn't work out compared to original Trilogy. I feel like I would like it more if I haven't watched the original Trilogy. As a standalone movie, it's a pretty standard slasher flick with a couple of good and pretty boring characters. I, as a casual viewer of horror, really enjoyed the first trilogy. Sure, it was a bit goofy, but as you might have guessed, this is not a serious channel, and I am not a serious person. The Fear Street trilogy is based on books by R.L. Stine. It's set in a cursed town of Shadyside. The movies are fun, dynamic, nostalgic, and have quite a few references that horror fans would appreciate. Besides that, the first trilogy had a pretty talented cast, decent character exploration, tragic love story, and intriguing lore that had really good potential. I even mentioned this trilogy on my ultimate Halloween movie list. Link below. The trilogy has a pretty good mix of supernatural and slasher horror. It had a good balance of action and character exploration, which makes it very endearing. I feel like that's really missing in current slasher movies, the character exploration, because it was a lot more prevalent, I think, in the 80s and 90s, where we have like very slow-paced, introduction to the main characters, where we see their lives, we see how they interact with each other, and then some stuff happens. I think we should have more of that. I love that there's endless possibilities for developing new movies following the Shadyside lore and the Sarah Fierce curse. I also love the fact that even though movies were filmed simultaneously, they didn't make it a limited series, but full-length movies instead. I feel like it gave it more cohesion. The story was more cohesive in general. Even though we had our fair share of nostalgic horror recently, and not one but two time travel slasher horror movies, Fear Street Trilogy stands out thanks to its writing, casting, lore, and just general vibe. They did it right. So I was pretty excited to see new Fear Street franchise movie to come out. And because I had high expectations, I was really disappointed. Apparently there was a different director with this movie, different writer, who adapted, I guess, one of the R.L. Stine books, and I feel like they could have connected this movie more to the original franchise, but they didn't. I mean, they probably based it closer to the original book, however, it didn't really work out on the screen that well. So I think one of the biggest failures of this movie is just the way they wrote the main female protagonist, the final girl. It was not it. Honestly, they did her dirty. So the final girl is Laurie Granger, played by India Fowler. I hope I pronounced it right. They did not do her character any justice. And also, in comparison, again, to the main Fear Street franchise, she was just the weakest final girl, the weakest main protagonist of this movie, because all the other characters, all the other sidekicks and everyone else, were much more fun to watch than her. Maybe she was supposed to be a placeholder for a viewer, not sure, but I don't think it was a great choice. Basically, she's bullied throughout the entire story by Tiffany Falconer. So I'm going to begin some spoilers. Sorry. Laurie Granger's mother had a teenage pregnancy, and her biological father tragically died at prom. So we would think, oh, does it have to do anything with the curse of the town? Well, let's see. So Laurie Granger is being severely bullied by her peers for her father being, and they blame her mother. They think that her mother, her father, but they don't have any evidence, so it's all, hearsay, all rumors and speculations. So her mother is not in prison, and she really wants to go to prom and become a prom queen to, I don't know, avenge her mother somehow? Or maybe sort of take back that moment that was stolen from her mother. Sort of make it more empowering for her? I'm not sure. To me, that's pretty weak motivation, to be honest. But to each their own. The main bully in this movie is Tiffany Falconer. Tiffany Falconer is an absolute psychopath. The way she just relentlessly bullies our main character is absolutely diabolical. And she has a boyfriend that our main character has a crush on. And her best friend Susanna is one of the characters that I actually empathize with, and she has a huge crush on our main character, Laurie, but Laurie doesn't see that. Also, it's the 80s, and queer couples are not that accepted, I guess. Susanna, she's a she's a horror fan. She's very crafty. She is really protective of her friend, and by all means, she should have been the main character. Whereas Laurie, she's very quiet, very calm, and whenever she gets bullied, she kind of freezes. She says nothing. She doesn't try to defend her mother. When they say the most diabolical shit about her, and she's just standing there blinking. And I understand the choice. Maybe she has a freeze response, and then in the end, we would have the school character development where she becomes the strong girl boss that defeats evil. But we didn't have enough time for that character exploration. Honestly, it's really hard to empathize with her, even though she kind of changes her perspective in the end, or whatever. So all the nominees to a crown of a prom queen have been pulled off before the prom and during the prom. And the the kind of worst part about it is the masked killer. So we're supposed to be wondering who are the masked killers. And there's not one, but two of them. And it kind of reminds us of Scream franchise, and I think that's what they were going for. And they were also going for Carrie a bit because of all the prom stuff and the bullying and everything. So I appreciate the references, but it's not enough to just nod to an iconic franchise or an iconic movie and be done with it. You have to kind of match the vibe a little bit, but it didn't happen. The only good killing happened with a paper cutter. However, most killings were kind of boring. When the characters would be approached by the killers, most of them wouldn't even scream or try to run away or fight that well. It was just kind of rushed. It wasn't savored. It wasn't like, there was no feeling of tension when the killings were happening. We didn't get the thrill of it. It was very rushed. And another pet peeve that I have with this movie is that most of the killings were done with CGI. And maybe for some people it wouldn't be noticeable, but I noticed the lack of practical effects, and it was the same for Fear Street Trilogy, but in the trilogy was kind of compensated with the good writing and the cool character exploration and cool characters. But in this one, there were no practical effects and the boring main character, who is absolutely unlikable. So that really was a bummer. So Laurie Granger is in love with Tiffany Falconer's boyfriend, and he kind of looks at her, and they kind of look at each other, and Tiffany's all mad and pissed off about it. And it's all so silly because, well, it's a school drama, but the guy, he watches his girlfriend completely obliterating Laurie, just bullying the fork out of her, and he says nothing the entire time. He's just there, smiling, hugging his girlfriend, and he has no problem with her being an absolute fucking psycho. In the end, and of course I thought he probably is an asshole too. In the end, it turned out that he was an asshole. He was an absolute dirtbag. He dumped Tiffany in the middle of a prom and tried to get together with Laurie, and he was like, well, don't you want to have sex? Immediately after they try to kiss. Laurie then pushes him off, and he gets killed off very quickly. And this whole time, I'm just thinking to myself, so who are the masked killers? Because it can't be Tiffany Falconer. Or I don't know, her two parents, perhaps, because it would be too obvious. They were like, oh, you should become the prom queen because we are from the generations of prom queens and we all prom queens and you should be one too. Some weird shit like that. But alas, it was Tiffany and her family. It was so predictable. First 5 minutes was enough to realize who is the main psycho, who is the main killer, the bully, and her parents. That is just lazy writing. And I guess it was like that in the book, and it probably worked in the book because the book probably is longer, probably does more character exploration or whatever. It's R.L. Stein's book, so I'm sure it's not like incredibly deep either. But it just didn't work in the movie because there should be some sort of surprise. Again, in the Scream movies, it's usually we don't know who is the killer or who helps the killer, and that's why Scream movies work. It didn't work here at all. When we find out that Tiffany Falconer's dad is a killer, first we realize that it was him. We don't know who the second person is. Tiffany starts crying and saying that she needs help and she needs support. She apologizes to Laurie, and Laurie takes Tiffany to her place. And there, it turns out that her mother was the killer, and the only plot twist that could be somehow a surprise to a viewer is that Tiffany's mother also killed Laurie's father, which is also quite obvious. So Tiffany also is in on it, apparently, obviously. They're the family of crazies. And Laurie, in the end, defeats both of them and becomes this cool chick because she's like, yeah, I am who I am, and now I'm confident. It was bleak, honestly, and it could work again as a standalone. You want something unpretentious, very chill that you could play in the background. You could probably watch this movie, but again, pretty bad writing. Like, even for a low budget, low stake horror movie, you could have done something else. I thought in the middle of the movie, I thought maybe the plot twist is that Laurie herself is a killer because she really, really wanted to be that prom queen. She kept saying how it's so important for her to become a prom queen for no fucking reason, because nobody in the school liked her. She was never popular. She was bullied. She was not trying to promote herself as a prom queen. Like, it made no sense, but I was like, well, if she's the killer, then that would redeem the movie. That would make it interesting, but no, that didn't happen, and I was really disappointed in the end. So, and I wasn't alone in this assessment. Prom Queen got 28% on Rotten Tomatoes, whereas first Trilogy scored between 80 and 90%. Yikes. Also, another problem that a lot of people point out is that it has nothing to do with Shady Side lore, with the Sarafir's curse, with the Book of Shadows or whatever. And yeah, there was not even a nod to the original trilogy, or maybe there was and I did not notice it, but it was kind of detached apart from it being set in Shady Side, and I thought that was a mistake by the writer. I think they should have done something there. And I want to read some of the couple of reviews that I thought were kind of funny. Worst movie I've seen in my whole MF life. Never gonna get that 1.5 hours back. No plot, no baddies, no lore, unrelated to other three, which were fire. No character development, don't even know what happened. Don't watch if you have any respect for your life or time. Minus 1,000 out of 10. Would rate it worse, but I can't. Yeah. The other reviews are not that funny. This one was kind of funny. Yeah, so with a sea of slasher and pretty sophisticated, beautiful gothic horror movies that we're getting every year now, and horror has renaissance these days, it's kind of sad to see such a subpar projects from Netflix. I think it could do better. I think this franchise deserves better, and I'm still hoping for sort of continuation of that Fear Street trilogy story. So yeah, Netflix, come on, do something. Thank you very much for watching, listening. Please subscribe. Be nice in my comments, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.